what we're looking at here is a movie. If you're going to keep people in the dark about what's really going on, you have to project a movie at them in which they will have a version of reality which is the one you want.
There is a conspiracy theory that a shadowy elite of bankers and media moguls are ruling the world from inside a secret room.
They say that the people that control this world could sit around one large table and have lunch.
The theory goes that these elitists plan to create an all-powerful new world order, a world government that will destroy anyone who disobeys them. It is a theory shared by militiamen and neo-Nazis, and in their own way, left-wingers fighting the global elite in Seattle and Prague. The message spreads through underground videos and anti-New World Order talk shows.
Is there a new world order?
There's a new world order.
Is there a new religion coming?
A new religion's coming.
The new world order has a certain smell about it. The smell of death.
But there's something else. Many conspiracy theorists say that great danger awaits those people who get too close to the truth about the secret rulers of the world. This is the story of what happens to one man who believes he's getting too close to the truth.
You know what your radio station is?
Thanks for coming in.
It's pathetic.
Very much for coming in. We'll look forward to seeing it on.
Pathetic.
Thanks for coming in.
And you say you believe in freedom? You couldn't spell it.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
This is life in the free world, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, I know where I am now.
Birmingham. One of the world's most successful conspiracy investigators is on a lecture tour of Britain. He is unaware that powerful people are right now plotting his downfall. He is David Icke.
So we go past Birmingham City Football Ground, don't we? I played there against the Radio 1 team, remember that? We got beat 7-1 there once, you know. I remember. And I was in goal. I put my head in my hand afterwards and dropped it, you know, it's one of them games. Like, let's see what happens if we go down here. Life's a mystery. Life's a mystery. Cracky. I say that's a wonderful example of what the human race is manipulated to do. Running like crazy just to stand still. As long as we do that, we're controllable. Keep on running faster, but make sure they don't get anywhere.
This former BBC sportscaster and once the most laughed at man in Britain is now an internationally successful conspiracy investigator who can play to audiences of thousands all over the world. How did this happen?
Here we go. Hello, guys. Hi. How you doing? Of course you can. Who's this to?
L-I-Z, Liz.
Liz.
That's me.
Good job, isn't it?
Thank you, Mr. Wright.
Thanks ever so much.
Is your son?
It is.
Hi.
This is Jamie.
Hi, Jamie.
Thank you. When you first hear that line, few people control the world, it seems crazy. But you know the sad thing? Not only is it possible, if you control certain institutions and certain flows of information, it's a piece of cake. You can't control billions of people physically to put people like George W. Bush and Bill Clinton into power. The way the scam is played, and always has been played, is to manipulate the way we think and feel so we perceive the world and therefore behave in ways that the agenda wants us to.
Back in the 1980s, David was behaving in the way the agenda wanted him to. He looked set for a glorious career in sports presenting with the BBC, the next David Vine or David Coleman or even Des Lynam.
I was a professional soccer player, and I finished with arthritis at 21 and decided I wanted to be a television presenter. And I worked my way up to be that. I wanted to front grandstand and all that stuff. Well, just 3 months after the disappearance of Shergar, racing has been stunned by the death from natural causes of the 1979 Derby winner, Troy.
That must have been fun, right?
Well, yeah, it was in the early days, but I got bored with it very quickly. The key point came in the late 1980s. It's a strange story. I was working for the BBC still at the time, and I just felt this presence around me. Like, when I was in a room alone, there was someone else there. And I remember sitting in the Kensington Hilton Hotel working for the BBC one night on the side of the bed, and I said to whatever, for God's sake, if there's something there, would you please contact me, because you're driving me up the wall.
The voices continued. They told David that he was the Son of God and that the world was about to be torn apart by natural disasters. David was panicked by these messages and he sought advice from a psychic.
She starts telling me that I was going to be world famous, that I was going to go out on a world stage, face enormous opposition and tell this story and basically reveal to the world what's really been going on. Now, I'm introducing the snooker at the time, John, you know, and I'm thinking, oh, you are?
Hello, welcome to the deciding frames of the 1990 British Car Rental Snooker World Cup.
So I'm kind of blown away by this. And bingo was on the Wogan show.
Let me get the story right. The press claim that you claim to be the Son of God.
Mm-hmm.
Is that true?
Yes, you see, the thing is that it's quite funny, really. You know, 2,000 years ago, had a guy called Jesus sat here and said these same things, you would still be laughing. It's really, really funny that we've not really moved on that much.
The conscious level was doing the interview, and another level of me was observing and going, oh my God, what's going on here?
When may we expect tidal waves, eruptions, earthquakes?
When these things happen...
As they will?
As they will, my goodness, they will.
When is the first thing going to happen?
Well, it will certainly happen this year. The first sequence will begin this year.
What will happen if they don't happen? What will happen to you?
They will happen because if they don't happen, there will be no Earth.
I remember this moment, watching it at home on TV. David said this with such conviction that the audience stopped laughing for a moment. This kind of thing can still shake us up. Could David Icke actually be a soothsayer? At that moment, I think the nation looked to Terry Wogan for guidance. How would he respond?
You know, the best way of removing negativity is to laugh and be joyous. So I'm delighted that there's so much laughter in the audience tonight.
But no, it's
but just let me say this.
They're laughing at you. They're not laughing with you.
Fine.
It had a very profound impact on me, the result of that interview, because I couldn't walk down any street in Britain without being laughed at by most of the people. If I'd have been in this little chef, if there were any people here, and this happened to me many times following the Wogan show, people would be giggling and laughing all over the place. Going into a bar or a pub, or forget it. Then you go home and you turn the telly on, and there'd be a comedian. I only have to say my name, and they had a laugh.
What I've heard you say sounds absolute lunacy to me. Yeah. I still think you're soppy as a box of frogs.
Yeah.
David Icke, thanks very much indeed.
You had a brain cell, it would die of loneliness.
And the scores are teetering on the brink of being exciting. What with Paul and David with 6, and with Ian and Nick with 13.
We need a miracle, David.
Bless you, my child.
This water tastes a bit like wine, doesn't it?
Obviously, my family were, at the time, devastated, because, especially my children, because, you know, their dad was now a figure of ridicule. They were followed to school by journalists, or the kids at school took the mick mercilessly.
Of course, the cataclysmic flooding did not occur, but David didn't allow this to destroy him. In fact, the experience of being laughed at across the media led him directly to his current belief that a shadowy elite secretly controls the world.
As a television presenter, I'd been respected, and people would come up to you in the street and shake your hand and talk to you in a respectful way. And then suddenly, and I mean suddenly, overnight, that was transformed into Ike's a nutter. That was so important for me in understanding, when I started to get into the manipulation, the agenda, the conspiracy, in understanding how it was possible for a relatively few people in key positions to run the world. They do it by manipulating the way people think and feel.
David's new theory struck a chord. Few people had believed him to be the Son of God, but many agreed that a shadowy elite, an Illuminati, was secretly ruling the world. His audiences began to grow.
And now,
as people start to see what I'm about and start to realize that Ike did not go crazy, and they're now being able to lift their heads up and say, that's my dad. You laughed at him, didn't you? But look at him now.
The conspiracy theory world is highly competitive, and ever since David burst onto the scene with his extraordinary new theory about the genetic origins of the shadowy elite, his fellow conspiracy investigators have been scandalised.
Now is the time! Not tomorrow! Not next week! Not next year! We're engaging an info war!
Everywhere I've been, meeting people who are trying to uncover the great conspiracy, the subject of David Icke always seems to come up.
So what's David Icke doing on TV?
We have a lot of different producers. You just get tired of the real meat and potatoes, the real issues. So he's gone for all the ridiculous Hollywood stuff of David Icke and the blood-drinking lizard people. So what does David Icke do? He talks about the Federal Reserve, the Bank of England, these global elitists, these power structures, all real, all true, all demonstrated by bills and executive orders and prime ministers and premiers and presidents. All real meat and potatoes, something you can bite into, something that is easily demonstratable. And then you've got David Icke at the end of all this. He says, by the way, they're blood-drinking lizards.
Who's going to have the guts to stand up on a stage and say that reptiles run the world? I mean, who's going to do it? No one's ever going to do it. We're never going to find out, are we? So, people were coming up to me and telling me how they had seen people, overwhelmingly in positions of power, though not always, turn in front of their eyes into a reptilian humanoid figure and then go back again. And of course you hear one and you think, ooh. And you hear two and you think, oh my God, back burner. You hear three, you hear four, you hear five, you hear six in different countries. Now these nodules on their head are something that come up again and again. And for some reason, drinking human blood, particularly the blood of blonde-haired, blue-eyed people, seems to be very beneficial to holding mammal codes open.
Blood, Al Gore needs blood to drink. So does Prince Philip. I mean, it's asinine. And it's being picked up by people, and so it discredits all of the reality that people are talking about. And that's the problem with David Icke. He's got a good line to a point, and then he discredits it all. It's like a turd in the punch bowl. That's his job. He's got this nice big thing, you know, this nice fruit punch, nice ice cubes floating around in it, you know, and then he takes a big dump right in the middle of it, and no one's going to drink out of that punch bowl.
But is he in league with them to do that?
I think he knows what he has to do in a controlled world to get away with what he's doing and be given attention. And he's either a smart, opportunist con man, or he's completely insane, or he's working for them directly. But I tend to think he's just a con man who understands how things works and is just a real opportunist.
It's 1 a.m. David has lectured for the last 6 hours, as he does most nights all over the world. During the past few nights, he's sold hundreds of copies of his lizard book, The Biggest Secret.
I just wanted to say I felt very inspired by it.
Right. Well, I do this all over the world, week after week after week. You know, I'm inspired by it. You know, we're moving so many books in the States now. Biggest Secret. Yeah. And the second edition is 20% better than the first. I mean, when things like this documentary go out, it's going to fly. Yeah. I'm as well known in South Africa now as I am in Britain.
Yeah.
Oh, God, I'm so knackered. I haven't seen you score a goal yet, JJ. Oh, no. Oh, here we go. Oh.
Come on.
Come on, Leicester against...
See if you can score against...
Leicester against Liverpool. Oh, I've got to do it with this. It's a bit more style, isn't it?
David is not bothered by his fellow conspiracy theorists' antipathy towards him.
Oh, he scored!
He's a loner who doesn't need the approval of his peer group.
What's this, going to be a market tomorrow, is it? See? Exposing the world conspiracy and then selling fruit and veg.
But now there's some real trouble brewing for David, something that might even destroy him. This is the New York headquarters of the Anti-Defamation League, the world's most powerful Jewish defense organization. The ADL's job is to identify and expose anti-Semites.
Tell me what you know about David Icke.
I know that he about yearly makes a tour of the United States. He is a New Age guru. And unfortunately, his philosophy is tainted with anti-Semitism.
The Anti-Defamation League believe, although they're not entirely certain, that when David Icke says 12-foot lizards secretly rule the world, he's using code. And what he really means is that Jews secretly rule the world.
If David Icke is telling people that 12-foot lizards equal Jews, it would make me feel very much as if I had something to worry about if David Icke came to town, if he believes that his 12-foot lizards are Jews.
The question is, does he believe that? It's hard
That's
to know
that's a very good question. If he just believes that they're 12-foot lizards, there are probably reason to be concerned about his health. If he believes that they're 12-foot lizards who represent Jews, there's reason to be concerned for the health of the Jewish community.
Knowing what I do about David's past, my guess is that when he says giant lizards secretly rule the world, he really does mean lizards. But I could be wrong. These are old anti-Semitic cartoons from Eastern Europe, and there is something lizardy about the way the Jews are portrayed, encircling and enslaving the world. Is this a coincidence? And there's something else. David has many fans on the extreme right. The hardcore neo-Nazi unit, Combat 18, once attended one of his lectures in London and gave him a glowing review in their newsletter. It was a good speech, they wrote. He began talking about a big conspiracy by a group of bankers, media moguls, etc. He was always clever enough not to mention what all these people had in common. Salt beef sandwich, anyone? So the anti-racists are not alone in believing that when David Icke says lizards, he means Jews. It does open up a whole can of worms about code words.
The Anti-Defamation League is really concerned about code words.
David's line of defence is clear. When he says lizards, he really is referring to lizards.
There is a tribe of people interbreeding which do not relate to any Earth race. It's not the Jews, it's not there's anything. Just look at me. This is not a Jewish plot. This is not a plot on the world by Jewish people.
Well, the thing is, when you say this is not a Jewish plot, some people think that's a metaphor for you saying it's a Jewish plot.
Are you going to laugh first or me? Who's disappearing up their arse, me or you?
You can't win this. This is part of the ludicrous attitude.
This is just total friggin' nonsense.
David Icke will put his hand to his heart and say, I am not an anti-Semite, I have the greatest respect for the Jewish people, but the Jewish hierarchy, like Muslim hierarchy, the Christian hierarchy, and so on, they're 12-foot lizards.
Right.
Does that make him an anti-Semite?
I think it does. I think it does. I mean, the fact is that that's a favorite way of dealing with anti-Semitism. I only dislike these Jews. I don't dislike all Jews. I just dislike these Jews. And somehow these Jews are the absolute epitome of what being Jewish means in the world.
For all the anti-Icke discord that exists in the conspiracy theory world, there is some solidarity when it comes to feelings about the Anti-Defamation League.
Any of us that are working to stop this New World Order, we're their enemies, and the best thing they can call us an anti-Semite, because then the whole world hates us. You say, anti-Semite, oh, that's the next thing towards Satan himself. I mean, that's like calling you Satan, you see. So that's the first thing they hit you with if you start talking against the New World Order, that you got to be an anti-Semite.
When you say they, who do you mean?
Anybody in what we call globalist.
My own feeling is that the ADL is an Illuminati front. See, in all these different religions and all these different belief systems and all these different cultures and races, the Illuminati have to have organizations, otherwise they're not controlling the game. There are areas that are unpredictable, and there's one thing the Illuminati can't stand. And I think their genetic structure is part of this. They cannot stand anything that's unpredictable.
Last night was great, and the bookshop, Orderson, said they could have sold the tickets twice over in the end.
The more time I spend with David, the more I'm convinced that when he says lizards, he means lizards.
And I would emphasize, you know, we all have a reptilian part of the brain called the R complex, a very ancient part of the brain. We all have a reptilian past. I mean, there are still some people in the world that are born with tails.
Could the Anti-Defamation League be falsely accusing David of anti-Semitism because he's getting too close to the truth? Are the ADL part of the shadowy elite? Does the shadowy elite even exist? I wanted to get to the bottom of it, and I felt that the answer lay within the simple question. When David Icke says lizards, does he mean lizards, or does he mean Jews? Vancouver. A coalition of prominent anti-racists have organised an emergency anti-Icke meeting. There are powerful people here, members of the ADL's Canadian affiliates, the Canadian Jewish Congress and B'nai B'rith. This coalition is convinced that when David says lizards, he means Jews.
Above all, I think David Icke represents a political threat. His writings are anti-Semitic. He believes that the world elite, the Illuminati who dominate every aspect of our lives, are genetically descended from an extraterrestrial race of reptiles that came to Earth some time ago in the form of humans who are capable of changing their shapes, who are Satanists, who engage in ritual child sacrifice, who drink blood.
This is a public meeting, but the chair has let it be known that it is for people who have already made up their minds about David. Unsure people are not welcome. If they could read my mind, I would not be welcome.
Because this is actually a meeting for people who are opposed to David Icke's presence in the community and opposed to the things he says. And I would just like to know if there are any people here who consider themselves supporters of David Icke or followers.
I haven't made up my mind yet. I don't know what he stands for.
This is not a meeting to debate what David Icke stands for. This meeting was called by people who have a very good understanding of what he stands for, and that what he stands for is against community values. So that's what the purpose of this meeting is to organize against David Icke.
I want to make a trunk call.
Why does everyone make fun of this elephant? I don't get it.
Well, people make fun of people sitting in elephants because it's funny, that's why. People say I'm flipping mad. I mean, crikey, I don't sit in elephants.
Who, quite clearly, in my view, is acts as a conduit to some extreme far-right organizations. Combat 18, I'm responsible for violent attacks on minority groups. So I see this as a real political concern in terms of what his agenda is.
I have a question for the man that just spoke. Do you see the Patriot movement as bad things?
I see them as far-right, anti-Semitic, racist ideologies.
I've been in the militia of the United States for the last 4 years. I've only met one racist there. I've met more on the street.
I mean, I think at this point that it may be unproductive, you know, for...
I'm here to learn. I don't know anything about Mr. Icke. If you want to boot me out, fine. But
well, I think that there are people who are uncomfortable with you staying at the meeting.
Okay. Could I ask 2 questions, perhaps rhetorical, before I leave?
Well, we set the terms of the meeting as that this isn't really a debate.
Yeah. I wasn't here to debate. I was here to get information about Mr. Icke. But I'll go. I take it most of you consider Nazism and Marxism are not the same thing. Am I right? You would think one is way worse than the other, and that they're not the same?
Actually, I think we really need to proceed with the meeting.
I'm gone.
Thank you.
Okay.
Wheels have been set in motion. The Canadian Hate Crimes Unit has been alerted. The coalition has also written to ex-Canadian Prime Minister Brian Mulroney to inform him that David Icke is accusing him of being a reptilian, blood-drinking child murderer. But so far, Brian Mulroney has declined to be provoked into legal action. In fact, every individual accused of reptilian blood drinking by David Icke has so far failed to sue, including Bob Hope, George Bush, George W. Bush, the Rothschild family, the Queen of England, the Queen Mother, Ted Heath, Prince Philip, Chris Christopherson, Al Gore, and Boxcar Willie.
You look what I've said in The Biggest Secret about the British royal family, how they're involved in satanic ritual, how they take part in human sacrifice ritual at places like Balmoral and stuff. Come on, let's have you. If it's not true, take me to court, let's have this out.
This is Canada's biggest book chain. Today, David has been invited for a book signing, unaware that the coalition has telephoned ahead to warn that if the event goes on, there could be violence from other racists.
If we're going to live in a free world and have the freedom of expression, how is
is that going to be defended if all it takes to stop it is one phone call threatening violence?
I'm not debating. I'm saying that right now the situation is that we chose not to have it because there was an issue of security, and I'm getting concerned about this right now.
Pamela, you're not willing to debate it because you have nowhere to go.
Well,
that's the truth.
If that
Please don't complain when your own freedoms are taken away. Thanks for your time.
You're very welcome.
These are your freedoms. And you don't realize that you're playing a part in destroying your own freedom by being just another clone of a system you're not interested in because it makes life more difficult to think about it. It's your freedom. I could walk away from this.
The events of the morning have made David rueful and homesick.
Would I want to do other things with my life other than this? My God, yes. It's something related to sport, probably. You know, I still love sport and all that stuff. But the thing that kills me most about doing this endless friggin' traveling is missing great chunks of my little boy growing up. There's not a day goes by without me feeling the agony of that.
What do you got to see this morning?
I've got a talk on a radio station, and then there's 2 television interviews. Don't ask me who they're with. Don't ask me anything about them. I feel like a mobile mouth, you know, sit you down and ask you questions, and you start talking. It's kind of strange life. You know, it's like my mother. When are you going to get a proper job out of Dave? When are you going to get a proper job? Never, never. Because this is a proper job, I guess, strange as it is. Radio 1 Broadcasting. Is this the one? Radio 1. Is Tony Blackburn here?
Yes, thanks.
Hello. Hi. David Icke. I've kind of been interviewed on a program at 10:15.
Right. We have reviewed the material which was submitted to us.
Say again?
We've reviewed the material which was submitted to us.
Uh-huh.
And we've also reviewed the radio regulations 1986.
I don't believe it. You got an exclusive here. Go ahead.
And we just don't feel comfortable with it.
Why?
Just don't feel comfortable.
Why? Explain to me.
No, that's it. Sorry. Thank you very much for your time.
You have invited me onto a radio station. I turn up on time, and you stand there and say, without any substance or explanation, we're not having you on. Now...
I just explained to you.
No, you haven't. Why? Tell me why.
I have reviewed the material which you have written, and I don't feel comfortable with it on the radio.
Why?
No, that's it.
This is what I'm talking about when I say the public are given one version of reality, and people like this at AM 1040 in Vancouver prevent them having another version of reality, which means, of course, that they're getting part of the story and not what they're really entitled to hear. And if you think not exposing the fact that children are being abused in fantastic numbers, my friend, is too much for your radio station, then you tell the children who are being abused.
Thanks for coming in.
You know what your radio station is?
Thanks for coming in.
It's pathetic.
Thank you very much for coming in.
And you say you believe in freedom? You couldn't spell it.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Nice to meet you.
This is life in the free world, ladies and gentlemen. And this is one of the architects, unknowingly, of the destruction of our freedom. Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
This is unbelievable. No explanation, no substance, no debate, just that's it. No conspiracy, no suppression of information, ladies and gentlemen of the world. Well, you've just seen it yet again.
You did say you were sick of doing radio interviews.
That's not the point. Whether I have to do one after the other to get this information out is irrelevant to the fact that the information again and again is being suppressed. Why? They'll tell you what the government wants you to know. They'll tell you what the transnational corporations and the stock market want you to know. They won't tell you what they don't want you to know. And people like that are unknowing, frightened little men who are editing the news while claiming to be part of a media that is free.
it was in reading some of the writings of David Icke that the decision was taken, hang on a minute, why isn't this guy in the courts of Canada? Because he out and out calls two of our former prime ministers of Canada, he says they are rapists. And I'm also amazed that if he truly believes that there is a superhuman extraterrestrial power overriding everything that happens on this planet that stifles opinion and stifles free speech, then why is he still with us? Why haven't the lizard men taken him out?
How's it going? It's 3-0 for us so far. Exactly. Leading the radio show. 2 on CFUN. His book signing at Chapters. Actually, Chapters gave us another one. I think it's 4-0 when they kicked him out when their security guards grabbed him by the scruff of the neck and threw him out. So I count that as at least a half.
This is Richard Warman of the Canadian Green Party. Richard is leading the campaign against David. His aim is to get David deported and his books seized and incinerated under Canadian hate crimes legislation.
That's the other thing. David Icke says that no one has ever read his books. Anyone who criticizes him has never read his books.
When David Icke says lizards, does he mean Jews?
No, well, half the time I think they're intermixed, because if it's all the Illuminati, and most of the Illuminati are famous Jews, then, and if the Illuminati are descended from extraterrestrial fourth-dimensional lizards, as they are wont to be, then yes, I think unfortunately Mr. Icke is referring to them as lizards. Gentlemen, here's to cooperation. Cheers.
Gentlemen, too evil.
I think we can release the hounds now.
You know that David thinks that you're the hidden hand behind all of this.
Make a note. He's on to me. Well, yes. You know, of course. I am probably descended from some sort of fourth dimensional, if not even fifth dimensional lizard. But David's not ready for that information yet. David's just not ready.
A representative from the Anti-Defamation League is in town to speak at the university. Tony and Erin from the coalition hope to co-opt the audience to their mass anti-Icke picket at David's lecture on Sunday.
Now, well, when we talk about Holocaust denial, I think the first thing we have to understand is the nature of the message. On the surface, Holocaust denial, everyone from Ernst Zundel to your fellowness, we were talking about Mr. Icke, who is bringing his lizard show to Vancouver. I would be very surprised if he is not a Holocaust denier. But I don't know specifically, but it sort of goes with the territory.
We're organizing a counter picket and leafleting Sunday morning at 9 a.m., and I really encourage people to come out. I'm just going to give you a couple quick quotes just to contextualize what this Icke guy is about. There's an interesting quote which he has on the Anti-Defamation League itself, and I'll just quickly read that. In Britain, I'm told by an extremely reliable source very close to the intelligence organizations that the far-right group Combat 18, which is a fascist group which is exploding, is a front for the sinister Anti-Defamation League, the United States arm of the Israeli Rothschild Secret Service, the Mossad. The Anti-Defamation League, the ADL, has been operating in Britain and Europe since at least 1991, and its role is to brand as anti-Semitic anyone who's getting close to the truth of what is going on. What better way to discredit an investigator than to have a far-right group like Combat 18 to praise them? I encourage people to come out Sunday morning, 9 o'clock.
Thursday, the coalition has failed to convince VTV, a popular local television station, to cancel David's scheduled appearance. Finally, David has a chance to put his side of the story across to the people of Vancouver.
Joining me now is David Icke and SFU psychology professor Dr. Barry Beierstein, who is also president of the BC Skeptic Society. Dr. Beierstein, whether or not Mr. Icke's theories make sense, why do you think he has a following when a lot of people would think that the ideas are completely out of this world.
What research have you done on that?
I'm just trying to just get this question from Dr. Byer.
And you make
Dr.
statements like
Beyerstein.
that. That's nonsense.
Well, I think the nonsense is in the other side, but that aside, your question was why do people believe it? Well, I think people like to enchant themselves, and this is classic mystery mongering. People want there to be grand conspiracies, and they want the world to be an even more mysterious place than it is, and they want simplistic, pat answers for why they're not happy, why the world isn't the wonderful place they think it should be, and that is more satisfactory.
Professor?
Just a minute, let me finish. That's more satisfactory psychologically than the sort of thing that science and decent scholarship will say.
Well, let's get Mr. Icke to respond to that.
Professor, did you major in patronizing the people of British Columbia? Because you really ought to have done. Tell me about... Hold on a second.
Here. I mean,
hold on a second.
Let's stick with your silly ideas, not the people that believe them.
Okay. Let's talk about, first of all, why Jewish groups are calling you anti-Semitic.
Because I'm getting too close to the truth. When you get too close to the truth, they can assassinate you, or they can assassinate your character. In my case, they've chosen the latter.
How would you respond to that, Dr. Beyerstein?
Don't get into these convoluted and paranoid fantasies that people are trying to shut you up. I mean, and what are you doing? You're on one of the biggest media outlets in Vancouver right now. That's hardly shutting you up.
I've actually had 2 major interviews on radio pulled this week by the owners of the network. I've had book signings cancelled because of attacks on my character. You want to read the papers a bit more, mate?
In the days that follow the TV debate, David's fans begin approaching him on the street, sometimes breaking into spontaneous rounds of applause. Some of the coalition privately admit to me that the whole thing is beginning to backfire.
See you Friday.
All right, good.
Great.
Okay, bye.
Smashing. Lovely to meet you. Bye.
The Jews are drawing their own parallels. They think, you know, they believe that they are the Illuminati that David's talking about. They're just paranoid. It's not true. He's not an anti-Semite.
I've been described as weird, but never deliciously weird. Is that an improvement, Jim, you reckon?
Yeah, well, I brought you a few copies there so far.
Vancouver's urban voice. And I'm deliciously weird. I think I'm making progress.
The anti-Icke coalition seems to be falling apart. The powerful Canadian Jewish Congress has already withdrawn, stung by the lack of support from the public. The people of Vancouver seem to like David and the Lizards.
I dropped a few books off at Granville Books.
Yeah?
They're all sold out. I want more.
Really?
Yeah.
The book's going like fire in this city.
The strange thing is that many in the coalition share David's conspiracy theories about an evil elite ruling the world. This is what the left-wingers here were battling against in Seattle and Prague. They just don't believe these elitists to be shape-shifting lizards or Jews.
What we do have to remember is out there are lots of people who are undecided on many things that he stands for that sound very progressive. He's against the WTO. I'm against the WTO.
There are very rational explanations of corporate globalization. It's not a conspiracy. Corporations do what they do because they are corporations, and we don't need to imagine conspiracies to explain why they would do everything they possibly can to increase their profits and take away the rights of workers and suppress democracy. That's their business. In fact, that's their only business.
The problem is this. David Icke has become so popular here in Vancouver that those people who don't believe in the lizards are beginning to seem like has-beens.
His views are expressed as the answer. You know what I mean? A lot of, especially young people, are getting involved in these issues, and they're seeing the, this big task before them. And we sort of have the answers as a group of people, but David Icke has the real answer, and it's these conspiracies and their lizards, and that's linked to dehumanizing, the Jewish elite. People who are just finding their ground on these issues are like, don't tell me I'm stupid, I'm looking for some answers, and he seems to have them.
But it is all over for the coalition. By the end of the week, they disband. In getting David banned from radio shows and book signings, the anti-elitists have themselves behaved like a shadowy elite, like the hidden hand, and nobody likes a shadowy elite. The few remaining protesters resort to desperate measures.
There's a group in Quebec called Les Antartistes, and what they have done is they've basically taken, to use a British expression, they've taken the piss out of a lot of public figures. And the method that they've chosen to do it in is by cream pieing them. We would never encourage anyone to engage in an act that might be construed as an assault. It'd be hilarious, but we wouldn't certainly go out and suggest anyone engage in that kind of behavior. Saturday, yes, at the book signing event on Granville.
I would not encourage this?
That's right. I would never encourage someone to be there at 1 o'clock with a cream pie.
All right, I'll pass that right along.
The only targets are people who are so pompous and so full of themselves that they desperately need to be taken...
They need some public humiliation.
Yes,
and
exactly.
How can you take anyone seriously when they got a pie on their face?
Saturday morning, and David is soon to be humiliated in front of his followers at a book signing at Granville Books.
And but I'd like it to be near the beginning, because then you know, you get pie in his face right at the beginning. Can you do the rest of his shtick if he's all disconcerted and covered in meringue? Meringue is... He's very slick, and his lies, you know, he's never had anything stick to him, so we wanted the meringue to stick to him. I mean, it's got another ability, especially these nice big sort of poofy ones, because they make a lovely fooping sound and get a good splatter, they've got a wide splatter radius.
You look scary.
The protesters have decided to create a distraction by getting some of their number to dress as giant lizards.
I don't know if we look like the proper kind of New Age flakes.
That's the thing, though. It's not just New Age flakes. Like, look at Mr. Militia Man that showed up to the meeting. Like, there's like a lot of different kinds of people.
Hey. Oh my God! What are you doing here?
Exactly. Right, these are our for the lizards to wear.
This is perfect. Listen to rational thought. That's great.
Lizard boy can't open the door.
How are you ever going to rule the world if we can't open the door?
At 1 o'clock, David and I walked the 3 blocks from the Rosedale Hotel to Granville Books. I am feeling just terrible about my passive role in the impending pie attack, but I give David no clue as to what's about to happen.
Okay, perfect.
I always get butterflies, but it's kind of more of an exciting thing. Like, ooh, like if I didn't get butterflies, it wouldn't be as fun. It would still be fun.
I'm just hoping there's no total wingnuts in there that are, you know, going to react in a hostile way towards us.
Hiya.
Howdy.
So, David, we're going to put you upstairs.
Upstairs? Oh. I can look down on the world like Buddha.
Hello, David.
Hello. Nice to meet you. How you doing? Hello. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
He's up in the balcony, his back to the stairs, and there's a bit of a press scrum right now, actually. There's a bit of a little press scrum going on, and some people lined up and whatnot. What I think there's a great possibility of for les entartiers is just go up the stairs and get him from halfway up the stairs from the side.
You know, life speaks to us all the time, and if you observe life, it's an amazing, constantly repeating library of knowledge.
A point some centuries ago.
Oh, here they come.
The
circus is here.
The reptiles run the world, eh? Talk about your anti-Semitism. Tell us what it is.
Oh, come on.
Distracting people from real progressive activism with bullshit science fiction stories and anti-Semitic crap.
Maybe the lizard should ask the question. Tell us why you're against Jews.
I don't care what you have to say. Get out. Don't care. Get out. You're not welcome here. Get out. Get out.
This, ladies and gentlemen of Britain, is anti-fascists at work.
More sugar!
The pie throwers left the store in such a hurry, they didn't realise that they missed David and hit the children's book section.
I mean, this is par for the course when you're dealing with actions like this. Usually something to do with children get affected by it, you know.
Children's books. Yeah? Not quite the same. Show your custard pie and rook. Yeah, this is pretty bad. You're going to lose this one.
Pie in the face is the ultimate expression of free speech. As far as I'm concerned. But I'm no academic.
What did you do?
I was surprised about the violin. Or two people tried to trip me downstairs and one person tried to push me down the stairs, and all three of them were old ladies.
We're just worried about getting pie sitting so close. Who wants pies for dessert? It's funny, I was walking back after they threw pies all over me, and there were people looking at me in the street, you know, like that, and I looked at them and I said, I'm just a messy, you know.
It's a privilege to be with you.
Cheers, guys.
Okay, the last music before Daniel comes on. Are we listening, or are we? And then after that, Daniel comes on, does his introduction. His final line will be, and as people are going to see today, David Icke's going to keep talking no matter what. At which point, right on the end of those words, we need to hit that Boy's Own song, No Matter What.
How many people are going to come today?
I heard somewhere around 1,000 people will be attending, so obviously whatever he has to say must be more than fascinating and interesting. He's definitely not a madman. Anyone that says it must be a mad person. You know, there's no way that he's a madman, because people don't come and travel and spend $50 or $60 a ticket to see a madman.
The coalition had originally planned a mass demonstration outside David's sellout lecture, but in the end it has fizzled out to just a few leaflets.
What does it say?
Oh, it says a lot of rubbish. David Icke is part of the problem, not the solution. Well, I don't know what he is, but I think when people get this scared that they're printing this kind of rubbish...
Well, you haven't read it yet.
I can tell by this bit here at the back. So what? Let him make a fool of himself if that's what he's doing.
Someone called me a fascist. I thought that was really...
No matter what they tell us, no matter what they do, no matter what they teach us, what we believe is true. No matter what they call us.
Later, I heard some of David's entourage talk about the failed protest, and I overheard one of them say, "The fat Jews f***ed up." David wasn't around to hear this comment. When they saw that I had, they blushed and fell silent and said nothing like it again.
The anti-racist action people managed to identify 5 members of the Aryan Nation, and I specifically saw one guy, at least, who was a little bit more hardcore, actually a swastika on the back of his neck tattooed on, and the SS called lightning slashes on his left forearm. So that was pretty scary. But the line was generally filled with white, wealthy, lizard believers.
Later still, before David's Christmas 2000 tour of Britain, Richard Warman will write to David's British venues to inform them that David is an anti-Semite. The promoters will take Richard at his word and cancel much of the tour. But that is in the future. For now, David takes his applause.
Thank you.